Hi everybody, Zane here with Sailing Views. First thing I need you to do is hit the like button and the subscribe button, the two little buttons on the bottom. That would help me out immensely, so don't forget to do that. Now, today we are going to talk about sailing, and not just any sailing. We're going to talk about how I got started. Yep, that's it, how I got started. My favorite subject, me. Now, it all happened back in, I guess, the 70s, early 80s. It all kind of came to be with my parents. Like most of the interviewers say, their parents had the biggest influence. They're the ones who took them to the yacht club, drug them out on boats, made the kids go sailing. So it was very similar in my case. My mother and aunt used to take me on, I guess it was an AMF puffer or an O'Day widgeon or something like that, and used to take me sailing as a baby. Then a little later, my parents, my mom and dad, had gotten a Venture 22, and we zipped around the bay, Pensacola Bay, on that boat. Now that boat had a swing keel with I guess it was a cable or a rope. I'm not sure what it was back then, probably a metal cable. Well, that cable used to vibrate and hum, and it drove me crazy. It used to scare me to death. But I got past that. I ended up eventually getting over that fear, and that mainly came with going on my parents' next boat, which was a Catalina 30. Now, the 30 didn't make all that noise, so it was much easier for me to handle. I didn't get as scared. The boat was big and roomy. I could crawl around, and I was fine for a little 5, 6-year-old kid. Now let's flash forward a year or two, or a couple of years, and we were at Lake Forest Yacht Club, which is a very small yacht club right next to the interstate, next to I-10 here in Alabama. Now, if you've ever driven across I-10, you'll notice it's basically a swamp. It's around the edge of the delta. You've got, reeds and alligators and turtles and snakes and all that fun stuff. Well, this yacht club is right there on the edge of that, right in the beginning of the bay where it opens up. So my parents were off sailing, and a bunch of us other kids, we had already done just about everything we could, hanging out down the yacht club. We'd flown kites, been swimming, fishing, you name it, we'd already done it. We were already bored with it. So we ended up getting one of my parents' friends sunfish. He had it just laying on the dock with all the gear, and a couple of us kids. We were probably, I guess I was definitely the youngest at 7, but there was another kid who was 10, another kid that was 12, and we all decided to put the boat in the water and go sailing. Which we also had to teach ourselves how to sail, because we'd been around boats, but none of us really knew what we were doing. So we grabbed this sunfish, threw it in the water, rigged it up, went out sailing. I'm not going to say it was without hiccups, because we ran into the dock, we ran into pilings, we flipped over, couldn't figure out how to get the boat back up. Luckily we had other adults there that could, come over and help us, but we basically kind of taught ourselves how to sail that way. A little further forward, at the end of that summer, we ended up getting some sailing lessons from John Dorgan. Now, John Dorgan, many of you may know that name, Dorgan. That comes from Mike Dorgan. His son is a Commodore San Diego Yacht Club. He ended up taking lessons with us and learned with us, and was a couple years older than I am, and he was just one of the kids that was at the yacht club a lot. So we finished out that summer sailing, and the fun part about sailing there with that group of kids we had was we had alligators. We had alligator gars, big old monster alligators, snakes, turtles. And so we had a lot of wildlife we had to watch out for. So what we ended up doing, we kind of made a game of it. As we started sailing, other kids started sailing. We eventually had 5 or 6 boats out pretty much all the time. So this game we made up was we'd see an alligator and we'd go and chase it. We'd see who could run over it, who could hit it with a centerboard. That was kind of the fun little game we played. So that was the sailing I grew up in. Just having fun, banging around, not knowing what we're doing. Like I said, we learned some lessons, but we didn't really know. Now from there, we kind of started racing. We just got, after playing in a boat and sailing around the Alligators, you start wanting to do more. Well, my parents had gotten into racing, or my dad mainly had. My mother sailed and raced with them as well, but my dad was a large driving force in it. And so he got me a sunfish and took me to a regatta down at Fairhope Yacht Club. Helped me get the boat off the beach and rigged it up and pushed me out. Now I went out there and I'm sailing against people who had much better boats, much nicer gear. Their parents would carry them down and put them in the boat so they wouldn't get sand on their shoes and things like that. And I was basically realized real early that I was doing the redneck version of sailing compared to the yacht club version of sailing. In case you don't know, there is a difference. Well, we went out sailing. I got slaughtered. I got last in every race. Not just last, big time last. Well, I ended up doing pretty well in one race. I managed to go to the correct course. Everyone else went to the wrong mark. I went to the correct mark. And because of that, I won the race. Everybody else had to backtrack and try to catch up. By that time, I was so far ahead, I couldn't lose. So I won a race. And then after I won that race, mentally, I realized I could actually do this. So the next race, I was closer and, a little more into the pack than I was being dead last. So that was definitely something. Learning that if you pay attention, if you sail smart and understand where you're going, you can actually do better than just blindly sailing off to nowhere. And that makes absolutely no sense. So we're going to cut. So I learned that if I paid attention and sailed to the correct mark and, was paying attention to the wind and where I was going, I could actually do something pretty well. So needless to say, I started focusing harder and paid more attention and ended up getting better and better results as I got older. Now, let's go back to my yacht club, Lake Forest Yacht Club, the little swampy Delta place. Because of all the activity from us kids, that were starting to participate and enjoy it, and we were all learning and getting better, thankfully the adults at the yacht club started running little Wednesday night races and, just little fun races. Well, those fun races became pretty serious, and we'd get 8 to 10 boats sailing every Wednesday, and we all started pushing each other. And the races weren't 15, 20 minutes long, if that. Probably more like 5 to 10 minutes now I think about it. But the races were quick. They were pretty simple. And we're sailing kind of inside the harbor, so it was pretty shifty. Now, I definitely think that helped me understand wind shifts and light air, heavy air, understanding puffs. So that helped me a good bit. And because of that internal, little sailing we did in our club, we all of us as a little group got pretty good. Some friends of mine, Elizabeth Adams, ended up winning some big regattas as she got, in her mid-teens. Her older brother, John Adams, he and I used to beat each other up constantly for, the top junior trophies, I guess, in our area. So our little group all got pretty good just by trying to beat each other up and do better, better than each other. It's basically one-upmanship. So that was, kind of how we got started. Now, by the time I was 12 or 13, I started doing other races and traveling. I did a regatta in Gulfport, which was the Galloway Regatta, which at the time was just the largest junior event I'd ever been to, and there were tons of kids, and I guess on my first trip over there, nobody knew what to expect. Everybody, I was the goofball kid with a colored sail out of Lake Forest, and they were all, the Gulfport kids with white sails and sailing really hard and had coaches and sailing lessons every day and did that. Well, I went over there and I actually was second in a race called I think it was a Broadwater, and it's kind of a long distance broad reach up and down the coast. And then Next regatta was the Galloway, and that's, we were doing triangle courses or something like that. And I ended up losing the regatta to Clinton Edwards due to a protest. First real protest, so that was fun. I think I had 2 firsts and a DSQ. Clint Edwards won with, I guess, 2 seconds and a first. Go figure. Yeah. Anyway, so after that, I started studying up on rules. I started sailing harder, realizing that I could actually win this regatta. Well, needless to say, I won it, that junior regatta, until, I guess, the next 4 years in a row. From the time I was 13 to, or 12 to, I guess I was 12 to 16, whatever year they changed the junior age and eliminated my junior career. Anyway, so I sailed a lot. I practiced a lot. I started traveling. I'd gone down and done a big sunfish regatta after the Gulfport event. I did a sunfish midwinters. Didn't think I was very good because I was toward the bottom third of the class, but when I beat adults, and I guess I was like 2nd or 3rd junior, which is pretty good considering I was 12 and had no idea what I was doing. Now from there, fast forward, and as I got better and better, I was sailing different boats. I started sailing on Flying Scots. As soon as I passed 100 pounds, I started sailing on a laser. And, a lot of perf boats, some big boats. So I got a good, well-rounded kind of upbringing on various different boats. I didn't sail any really hot boats, and I didn't race lasers competitively for a long time. I was, I was tiny. I was a little runt, so I never had any weight on me, so I could never hold down a laser. The radio hadn't been invented yet. So yeah, I just sailed a lot, on anything and everything I could. Now, growing up, when I was, between the ages of probably 10 and 15, I was so addicted to sailing that I'd rigged up a little contraption on my bicycle that I could carry my life jacket, my centerboard, and rudder down, and I could ride my bike down to the yacht club, rig it up, go sailing, and I'd ride back home afterwards. It took me a little while to realize I could leave my centerboard and rudder in the boat, but, you're a kid. It was in this process I actually learned about fiberglass work and fixing centerboards, because running into alligators and old sunken piers, you kind of bang into things and beat up your board. So I learned how to fix things there with just your basic fiberglass and your resin and things like that. Now that kind of developed into wanting to learn more about boat work and all of that good stuff, which leads me to Donnie Brennan. Now, Donnie Brennan is I guess the Olympic boat rider. He was. I'm not sure if he still is, but he's been doing U.S. sailing team's boats for years. He's also done Melgis, big in the Melgis class, J70 class, Viper class, Flying Scots. I don't know. If you want a really fast boat, you send it to Donnie. He tweaks it, tricks it, and sends it back to you. Now, I used to bug Donnie from, I guess I was 14, 15 years old, and I didn't know there were any good sunfish sailors around my area. I didn't really know much because, I had only really done junior events. Well, I was reading in the Sunfish magazine, the Windward Leg, and I realized Donnie Brennan had just gotten second at Midwinters. And I don't remember if it was in Tampa or Sarasota or where it was, but somebody from Mobile had gotten second. So, of course, I looked him up in the phone book. I called him once a week. Hey, Donnie, let's go sailing. Hey, Donnie, let's go sailing. Hey, Donnie, let's go sailing. And I bugged this poor guy for, I don't know, years, until he finally showed up at a regatta around here. And by that point, I was, I guess, coming into 14, 15 years old and getting on the little bit of the older scale and starting to learn. And he came out and just kicked my butt. And heck, I might have my ages wrong. I might have still only been 13 at the time. But he came out and kicked my butt. Now, that motivated me to get better. So, of course, I practiced harder and harder and harder. By the time I was, in my, I don't know, a couple years later in that 16 range, I was actually pretty darn good. Just getting beaten by someone locally, it motivated me. Now, I guess when I was And out of high school, just getting out of high school, so I guess I was 17, 17 or 18. I decided to move in with a friend of mine in Mobile so I could be a little closer to Donnie. And I went to work for Donnie. So he taught me how to do fiberglass work and really, opened my eyes to some of the bigger picture, to sailing and boat work, and just really opened my eyes. But at that point, I also got to sail with Donnie or against him pretty much all the time. So we would go out and practice and sunfish and race against each other. And like I say, at this point, I'm starting to get pretty good. They eliminated my junior career, so from 17 on, or late 16s, I was sailing with the adults. I had a bunch of people to sail with, and all these people really taught me a lot. You had the Stifles, you had Peter Merrifield, you had the Egan's, you had the Weatherlys, the whole Weatherly family, Sam Hopkins, the Lovels I was growing up against. So I had to sail against all these guys all the time, and they just beat me like a drum. I had to learn. I had to get better. I had to work harder. I had to get smarter. I had to get faster. All of these things influenced me to become, a pretty decent sailor that I am now. I wouldn't say I'm great, but I can pull out some miracles every now and then. Now, that is your quick story to how I got started sailing and how I kind of spent my junior career. I guess towards the end of my career, I started branching out, started sailing lasers more, sail 420s with Kevin Northrup, laser 2s with him, 470s with Scott Mathis. I'd done just different boats at that point and started rounding out how to sail as I got older. But it all started trying to run over an alligator. So that's basically it. There's my story, short and simple. I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't stutter too much. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Join up because I've got more of these videos. Oh, and the reason I'm doing this video today and not having a real celebrity sailor give you an interview is because I spent last week in Missouri and then 4th of July, and I've been busy for about a week and a half, and I haven't had time to interview anyone or to line up interviews. So this is what you get. Sorry about it, but this is it. Sometimes life happens and I can't put the videos out as quickly as I like. So here you go. But if you want to hear more, hit the little notification bell. You'll get notified every time I post a video, which I shoot for 3 of them a week. Who knows? It could be 3, it could be 2, it could be 5. I seem to change it up a lot just because, well, I do. Anyway, there's my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Over, out, and bye-bye.